Hi, welcome back to Basic Bass. I'm Brent-Anthony Johnson. In this lesson, we're going to cover a couple of different scales that I haven't covered yet, and then we're going to talk about some other things going forward. And so let's get ready to go. The first scale I'm going to talk about, and something to practice as students, is a chromatic scale. And the chromatic scale has the 12 tones between one root to its octave. And so had not covered that before. And so I just wanted to talk about that very quickly because there's a very unique way to approach the scale. And so we're going to get started. We use our trusty C note, which is the third fret of the A string, with our index finger. And what we're going to do is play a chromatic scale. Chromatic just means all colors. So it means every single note between this note, the C, the root, and its octave. And the way to approach that is like this. First note C, third fret A string, second note C sharp D flat with your middle finger, fourth fret A string, third fret, fifth fret ring finger A string, pinky, sixth fret of the A string, and that note is going to be D sharp E flat. Then to approach the E, as opposed to doing this, we're going to play here. Now notice I went back a fret to approach this, which is the index finger on the second fret of the D string with your index finger. Next note F, middle finger, third fret, D string. Next note, fourth fret, ring finger, F sharp, G flat. Fifth fret, D string, pinky. And once again, I'm going to walk back another fret to A sharp, or G sharp, A flat, index finger, first fret of the G string, A, middle finger, second fret of the G string. I'm going to play B flat, which is the third fret of the G string. Then I'm going to play the note B with my pinky, and then I'm going to move the entire position up one fret to play the octave, which is C, fifth fret of the G string with your pinky. Now, in actuality, how that scale looks when you're simply playing it, though it's good to rehearse the notes as you're playing the scale or any chromatic scale, sounds like this. When you're descending the scale, you play the same sort of fingering, but in reverse. So as opposed to walking back a fret lower, you would advance a fret higher. And it looks like this. So just as you made that step up from B to C, when you're ascending the scale, you make that step down from D flat C sharp. So once again, and that's a good scale to practice because it covers all the notes between a root and its octave. And you can play that from any position on the fingerboard, just use the same fingering. And that would be the same scale, but from the note B flat, as opposed to C that we were playing before. And this is a great scale to practice. Use some permutation information as we've talked about before, but it's entirely up to your imagination. It's entirely up to how you're thinking about employing this information and really what you feel that you want to hear in response from your instrument and to your ears. So it's a wonderful time to really hone in and listen very carefully to the differences between the notes and how one note sounds different than the other. And also it's a great way to practice entry and exit from a note. How long do you want that to, last before you play the next note? And how do you get into the next note? Once again, there are times when you want to play very staccato, which is, and even then, there's a concept there to have in mind about how it sounds. Everything when you're playing music, it's how it sounds. Oftentimes people want to play the right notes, which is great, which is something to do. It's sort of like reaching your destination when you're driving. But the distance between the two notes that you're playing from one note to the other is very important, and how that sounds sort of builds your musical character. It's a situation in which you want to pay really close attention to the duration of notes and that sort of things, and how you get into a note and how you exit a note. This is very important in anything you play. So as you develop your own sort of speed and feel about how this is going to sound, how you play cleanly between the notes, or if you slur or things of that nature, all of those things are very important. But once again, please remember to not perform your practices. It's very important to use your ear and practice as if no one's looking and as if you're not performing. You're simply getting information out of the instrument, and how to attack the instrument with your plucking hand, and how to fret the instrument with your fretting hand, and how that comes together. So once again, now notice there's not a lot of extraneous noise or effort. It sounds rather effortless, it should. So, and that's just how my notes sound. You may find that your notes sound different than mine, or differently than mine, but that's not important. It is really, it comes down to how you're approaching this instrument and this information. So. And this is a really good idea to use. You can use eighth note information. You don't simply have to play quarter notes. You can play triplets. You can play eighth notes. That sort of thing. You can play 16th notes. It just really is up to your imagination. So. And how that sounds. And you'll notice there at the end of that little phrase, I played a little vibrato, which we'll also cover in another lesson. But it really comes down to what you want to hear. So that's a scale to practice. Again, go around the circle of fifths, start at each point, play a chromatic scale, and listen to how that sounds, because you're also moving from one string to another, and how there can be evenness between the notes. So, and how that tends to sound as you're going to the next string, as you advance up the scale, as far as ascending and descending the scale itself. So practice that, look into it, and just learn how to feel your way through it. It's a wonderful way to develop control of the instrument. And again, you're listening to the notes itself. The next scale I want to cover is pentatonic scales. As I covered major and minor scales and a lot of the modal scales, I didn't do the whole thing about the pentatonic scales that I'd like to cover now. The first scale that I'd like to cover is a pentatonic major scale. Now, pentatonic has 5 notes. There's no modal system attached to pentatonic scales. You have to have a 7-note scale in order to break it down into the modal facets of the scale. Now, remember, they all have different names. There's different scales to do that. So far, we've talked a lot about the major scale. And so understand that when you're playing melodically, you're probably covering modal facets using a modal scale, or you're playing a pentatonic scale. A lot of common melodies that we sing and a lot of things in the lexicon of music cover these very emotional sounding pieces of music that really don't have to get into the major, the minor, that sort of thing. It really comes down to intervals. And so as we're approaching the major scale, the major pentatonic scale, first of all, it sounds like this. The notes are C, D, E, G, A, and an octave. Once again, 5 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then an octave. Notice I never count the octave as one of the notes, because you're talking about 8-note scales, as opposed to diatonically, it's 7-note scales from octave to octave that we're talking about, or in this case, a 5-note scale. So again, there's no modal system attached to it. It sounds like this. So again, C, index finger, D, middle finger, 5th fret, E, 7th fret with your pinky, G, 5th fret of the D string with your middle finger, A, pinky, the 7th fret of the D string, and then it's octave. So that sounds like this. Now, there is a concept called the blues scale, which adds an extra note. Again, we're talking about 6 notes now as opposed to 5, but it's just a blue note in the context of the scale and how it sounds. It would look like this. Instead of playing from C, D to E, you're adding a D sharp, E flat note in the scale. So it sounds like this. And that's just known as a major blues scale, simply put. And that's a great thing to practice. You'll hear that a lot in a lot of different music. So you'll hear that in a lot of different genres. It kind of stands to reason that there's a reason for that scale to happen. So you can play that scale that way and practice that and get that under your fingers. The next scale I'd like to cover is a minor pentatonic scale. So as opposed to having a major third from C to E, which is a major third, it has an E flat, which gives it a minor third sound. So that scale sounds like this. So you're playing C, E flat, F, G, B flat, octave. Now in order to make that a blues scale, you would simply add the note between F and G, so an F sharp, G flat. In that particular scale. So the difference between major and minor pentatonic sounds like this. That's major. Minor is. Okay, so now occasionally I will add that D note. Typically I don't, but in the minor anyway, because it sounds less happy. But it is part of the scale. To make that a blues scale in the major, you would simply add that so you would add a G sharp, A flat to the major. And you would add an F sharp, G flat to the minor. The thing to remember is that when you're playing in a major key, as it were, the B flat, which is the 7th of that scale in the minor pentatonic, moves outside of the realm of a major scale. So keep it, in the realm of a minor context, because it will clash very, very loudly if you do add that. As far as the blue notes are concerned, in the case of the major, the the G sharp, A flat, that can be handled as a passing note. In the minor pentatonic scale, the F sharp, G flat can add the same sort of feel. So there's ways to use the scale, and the reason they're named major and minor is because they fit in that context pretty well. So as you're playing through this information, understand the difference between a pentatonic scale and a blues scale, which is also a pentatonic scale with the addition of a note that's typically referred to as the blue note. Nothing wrong with this information as far as when you're employing it. You'll hear a lot of minor blues scales, I've noticed, in your local guitar stores and things of that nature. A lot of guitar players and bass players, bass guitar players will warm up using that information. Nothing wrong with it. Especially as we're growing as musicians and we may or may not know those modal scales that are so important to know and things of that nature. Again, please tell yourself the notes as you're playing through the scale, just as a practice, just so you know. Once again, when I'm playing information in a live context or a recorded context or something like that, where I'm actually playing music, I'm not thinking about the notes. I'm just playing what sounds good. And based upon my practice regimen, I've learned what sounds good, and I don't really have to think about it. It's sort of like learning how to drive versus driving. There's a lot of practice that goes into those types of concepts, and I brought that up before, but I just want to really identify the differences between practicing and playing. See you next time.